Well, welcome back to the video, and today we're going to be talking about pro riders and crashes in the races. And we just had one with Julian Alaphilippe, and he crashed in the Tour of Flanders, and he ran into the back of a motorbike. I mean, this seems like just crazy stuff. Is this really, can this really be avoided, or is it really someone's fault? Was it with the lead rider, didn't give him any indication? Or really, should that motorbike have even been there in the first place? So let's have a bit of a discussion on how they actually run these events and these challenges that they have to make it as safe as possible for the riders. Well, when we look at these pro events, they're a bit of a kind of an unusual setup. You have vehicles and you have the managers in there, and they have food and bottles, and they have domestics that go back and collect that and take it back up to the main riders. And you have like officials on motorbikes. You have, the journalists and the camera people hanging off the back of motorbikes. And in some cases, you even have mechanics hanging out of windows of cars and fixing or preparing the bikes so they don't actually have to stop and they can keep them moving so that they are in touch with the peloton. Now, I've seen this, and it's kind of a bit of an unusual. There's no real sport that does this besides cycling. If you're in like a motor car race or anything like that, and you have a breakdown, it's like stiff bickies. You have to come back to the pits. You're doing laps, and if you can't get back to the pits, then that's it. Your race is over. So this whole concept of let's follow the peloton, let's follow the riders, let's allow drinks and food and domestics to go backwards and forwards and feed them. And this whole thing about if someone drops back, we'll motor pace them back onto the peloton and all this. It's kind of a very unusual setup, and I originally did used to follow the Formula One, and I find it quite unusual the way they do this. Well, anyway, this to me is really part of the whole problem here, because what's actually happening is the cyclists want to use those vehicles to get an advantage, because as we all know in cycling, if you draft someone, you're getting pretty much a 30% advantage. So you're getting a wattage plus of about 30%. So if you're sitting on 300 watts, you can pretty much do 200 watts and you'll get the same pace if you're getting a good draft. Now, in this situation with Julian Alaphilippe and the other two riders that are in front of him, he obviously weaved over because he saw the motorbike and he goes, look, I can get a little bit of a draft off this. It may actually even give me an advantage. It might actually be able to pull a gap to the other two riders. And and he may have even thought, hey, look, if the riders behind me don't see the motorbike, I may get rid of one or two of them. It might have actually been a actually decisive decision to try and drop or get rid of the other riders. Now, this is where I have a little bit of a problem with the way that the whole Pro Tour is organised, because we talk about safety. Like if I get into my car and I go out into the road, I can't hang out of windows. I can't have a photographer on the back of the motorbike facing the wrong way and taking pictures and doing all this sort of crazy stuff. If the cops see me, they'll pull me over and I'll get a fine. But yet we allow that sort of carry on when we have these pro events. Now, some people may say, yeah, they're closed roads, it's a controlled environment, and we can allow that. The cars are not going that fast, they're only doing 40 or 50 k's an hour, they're not doing 100, and you can make all these sorts of arguments. But to me, if you're going to put the words up there, safety and safety for people, then really it's not that safe what they're doing. So you could actually even argue that motorbike that was there, and we had the front runners, why was he in such a close proximity to the front riders? Should he have been there? And this is my point. It's also allowing the riders in the actual race to use those vehicles as a tool to get an extra draft or get some advantage, or even a calculated way of trying to drop the other riders or even cause a crash to the other riders. Because we've seen in modern racing what guys are prepared to do. They're prepared to cut across, they're prepared to lean into other riders, they're prepared to push them into the barriers and make them crash for the win. So it's very, very cutthroat. And I think that the people who organise these events need to take some responsibility for that crash. That's my personal view. Everyone else might go, yeah, it's just an accident, it just happened, whatever. and some people have even said the lead rider should have shown the rider behind that there was a vehicle in front, out of courtesy. But, they're racing and they take every advantage they can, so they're probably not going to do that. But the organisers need to provide a safe environment for these riders. And I think that the way we have vehicles getting very close to the peloton, we have the cars passing some of the riders, and on some of these very narrow roads that I've seen, it's putting that margin there that there can be an accident. A vehicle and a bicycle can have an interaction. And in this situation, that's exactly what happened. So my personal opinion is that motorbike shouldn't have been there, right? Now, because it gives an aid to some riders, and even the guys who are back in the peloton, they might be chasing those guys. Now, if they had got a draft of that motorbike for some considerable distance, say 100 metres, then that could actually give them an advantage to keep that gap open. So all those sorts of things come into play. And if you've got your opinion on it, please place it down below, because this is quite a complex issue. It's, people sort of think that the organisers are all doing the right thing, but I think it's the organisers' responsibility to provide a race that is safe for the riders and safe for spectators and safe for everyone. And I think in this situation, my view is the motorbike shouldn't have been that close to the riders in the first place. And I also even think that there should be some review of how these riders have sticky bottles and how mechanics hang out of windows, how they motor pace the bicycles back onto the peloton, and it's been shown. I mean, people have seen videos, of all of the tyre marks on the back of these team cars, as they motor pace them back on. So they're basically touching the cars to get that draft. Now, I'm not in favour of that sort of stuff. I don't think I think if you fall back or whatever, you shouldn't be motor paced back on. If you're a domestique, you shouldn't be motor paced back on, because what it does is it encourages all of this cutthroat behaviour. Okay guys, that's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks for watching the vid, and I'll see you next time. Remember to ding that bell and also follow if you're on Instagram. Cheers.